Let's go ahead and call the Senate to order. Sergeant Arms will please secure the doors. Members will please take their seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President,
All right, Senators, this morning we are very pleased to again have with us Bishop Antonio Palmer of Kingdom Celebration Center, guest of the distinguished senator from the 32nd District. Members, please rise for the invocation.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to say thank you to the entire Senate for affording me this privilege of giving the invocation for today's session. I'd like to also thank my senator, Senator Pam Vital, for extending the invitation to pray for you all. I'm forever grateful for the mutually beneficial relationship that we have as we serve our community together. Thank you, Senate President Bill Ferguson. We thank you for your leadership. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, creator of heaven and earth and all mankind, before we make any decisions, discuss any bills, or go over any plans today, we want to give you thanks. We thank you for physical health in our bodies, strength in our minds, and giving us a heart to serve you and the citizens of this great state. Thank you for using us as vessels of goodwill. You have been so good to us, even when sometimes we don't deserve it. When we open our eyes this morning, we awaken to new mercies, how you've forgiven us of our sins, failures, and shortcomings. Clear our minds today, that our thoughts and plans will be aligned with your plans for our lives and for those who we care for. Govern our decisions and conversations. Let us be a model for our nation, that the state of Maryland cares more about accomplishing that which is good for the betterment of its people than for any selfish reasons. Let those that are suffering during the pandemic find a haven in our decisions that we are making on their behalf. Those who lost homes, loved ones, businesses, jobs, and health are counting on us to make sound decisions that can restore hope, bring healing, and create new opportunities. We ask for your supernatural power to make up the difference of what we cannot do in our human capacity. Place your extra upon our ordinary, that we together will come up with extraordinary, innovative solutions where everyone can be on the winning side. Remind us that we are a collective, a team, a unit for good. Today, we let our light shine before men, that they will see our good works and honor you. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I pray apostolic blessings upon the Senate, and let the state of Maryland forever be blessed. Our Father and our God, this is our prayer. Amen and amen.
Thank you. Thank the Bishop. Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd District.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Apostle Palmer is a community leader and a spiritual leader.
Excuse
and
me,
I had
Senator.
the privilege.
Senator, just getting a little bit loud in here. Folks,
Okay.
if we could just give our attention to the senator.
I'll start over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Apostle Palmer is a religious leader, spiritual leader, and a community leader, and I had the privilege of attending his celebration this year when he was elevated from bishop to apostle, and it was a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. So Apostle Palmer is officer in the United Black Clergy. He and his wife, Pastor Barbara Palmer, have started Kingdom Care, mentoring at a family support center for young single moms that need to complete their education.
All right,
He's also,
Senator, excuse me. Senators, please. If there's side conversations, take it outside. The senator has the floor.
Thank you. He was also our community liaison for the Severn Center, which is under construction and will be in some underserved communities. It's a very important center. But he's currently working on a Veterans Resource Center, which we'll see in the form of a bond request this year for homeless veterans and a resource center to help them. So, Mr. President, I want to thank this wonderful spiritual leader and community leader, and I request that Apostle Palmer's words be journalized.
Without objection, most certainly we will journalize the pastor's wonderful invocation this morning, and appreciate the great work that he's doing in the community. It really, really matters. So, all right, senators, everybody recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 41 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is now in session. Do we have introductions today? Introductions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st District.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my honor to introduce our doctor of the day, 41st resident, Dr. Joy Baldwin, who sits to my right. Dr. Baldwin is a family practitioner with 8 years experience. She's a graduate of the Robert Larner, Maryland MD College of Medicine at the University of Vermont. She provides primary care for the entire family. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Baldwin.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We love our primary care docs. They're doing the important work. Thank you, Senator. Other introductions? Chair recognizes the co-chair of the Protocol Committee.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I guess it would be appropriate at this time that we have our pages with us virtually, but this will be their last time with us this week. So I just wanted to recognize them and review their names again. Do we want to put them up on the board, or do we want to?
Sure, let's go ahead and do that now. That's a great
Here
idea.
we
Let's do
go.
that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to say goodbye to our pages. So we are saying goodbye. See you later, too. Oluwasum Ademiloe, Prince George's County, District 24, Academy of Health Sciences at Prince George's Community College. Elina Allure from Baltimore County, District 48B, Catonsville High School. Samuel Buckle, Kent County, District 36, Kent County High School. Bridget Carbon, Hartford County, District 35B, C. Milton Wright High School. Nathaniel Eck from Montgomery County, District 15, Clarksburg High School. Jasmine Juar from Montgomery County, District 14, Paint Branch High School. Jupleen Knauer from Montgomery County, District 16, Richard Montgomery High School. Tyne Kidd from Charles County, District 28, Henry E. Lackey High School. Madison Knight, Worcester County, District 38A, Pocomoke High School. Sophia Monsalvo, Howard County, District 13, Atholton High School. Natalie Ogaba, Frederick County, District 4, Oakdale High School. Izira Kadri from Montgomery County, District 15, Thomas Sprigg Wooten High School. David Roy Casiel from Anne Arundel County, District 30B, Annapolis High School. And Robert Sewall from Calvert County, District 27C, Calvert High School. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for participating with us, and we wish you the very best in all of your endeavors.
Thank you so much, Pages, and we do
Thank you,
very
Mr.
much. You are our
President.
best and brightest, and keep doing us proud as you find your new engagements in next year and in a post-COVID world, we assume. All right. Any other introductions? Any other introductions? Yes, Chair recognizes the senator from the Upper Eastern Shore.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Maybe a virtual introduction, but today's a very special day, and in my family, February 25th is my mom's birthday. And many of you have met my mom here before. She has come in several times. Unfortunately, she called me this morning, said she had a scheduling conflict, which probably just means she didn't get home from Maryland Live until after 2 a.m. But that's true. Mr. President, I just want to say one of the, I think, great things about this live streaming, it really probably connects us a little bit more. And very lucky that my mom is always watching on YouTube, and I get a phone call or a text message from her every night when I get to hear her opinions on what happened on the Senate floor. She's a resident here in Annapolis. She was very impressed the other week, I guess, when, well, I won't say her senator because I'm her senator, but the senator that represents her had a hat trick with the bills that she introduced. So My mom was also quick to let me know that in bowling, 3 strikes in a row is called a turkey. So I learned that as well too. So anyways, Mr. President, again, I'm sorry my mom can't be here. I know she's watching, and if we could all just wish her a happy birthday today.
Happy birthday. Happy, happy birthday. I was looking around because I thought she was going to be on the floor, and I was wondering if we were, so yes, wonderful. The turkey, love it. Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from the 37th District.
Thank you very much. And again, we have another special birthday person in the house.
Yes,
so
we do.
today is Nicole Sanders' birthday. Nicole, would you stand up so we can give you a round of applause and a happy birthday? Thank you, thank you.
Our incredible, incredible Secretary of the Senate, and just leads an incredible office, doing remarkable things, particularly over these last few years. So very happy, happy birthday. All right, any other introductions? Introductions, announcements? Oh, Nicole, your son is here. Ah, yes. You have to remind me of your son's name. Andrew, Xander, welcome to the Senate. We're so pleased that you could see your mom at work and the people's business happening. We are so grateful for her. So thanks for being here today. All right. Fair enough. You know, I remember those ages. All right. Anything else? All right. Without objection, so be considered the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We will go ahead and start with more bills coming. Number 47, clerk will read the bills.
Senate Bill 989, Senator Ellis, election law, absentee ballot envelopes, party affiliation rules.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the bills. We have some bond initiatives. Clerk will read the bond initiatives.
Senator Quarterman, Chase 6 Boulevard, Campus Avenue, realignment and intersection.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the Senate bond initiatives. They will be referred to the subcommittee on capital. We have a few things that are a little bit different, the joys of appointments. So we have 3 letters. Well, at least we just have to get these into the journal. So let's go ahead and start with, we have, the first one is from the city? Which one do you have? We have one from Johns Hopkins. Clerk will read the letter.
Reference to appointments to the Johns Hopkins University Police Accountability Board.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the letter. The letter is ordered journalized. Next, we have one from the City of Baltimore. Clerk will read the appointment letter.
Reference to appointment of Edward L. Reisinger to the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore City.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the letter, and the letter is ordered journalized. Final one. Clerk will read the letter.
Reference to the appointment of Michael Huber to the Maryland Stadium Authority.
Majority Leader moves so be considered the reading of the letter and will be ordered journalized. All right. We have a message from the House. Message from the House of Bills. This is their 3rd calendar. So we're at 3. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 16, Delegate Lehman, crimes, unattended dogs, extreme weather conditions, and heat.
Majority Leader
JPR.
moves so be considered the reading of the bills. They will be referred to the appropriate standing committees. That's what I was looking for. There are the letters. All right. We do have a second reader report from Education, Health, Environmental Affairs, calendar 14. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 273, Senator Elfreth, Environment, PFAS Chemicals, Prohibition and Requirements, George Walter Taylor Act, favorable with 3 amendments.
Chair recognizes the Chair of the Committee as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've heard the word PFAS, PFAS. It stands for, and I'll try this once, perfluoroalkyl substance or polyfluoroalkyl substance. But collectively they're known as PFAS, PFAS. This is the chemical that's used in when firefighters use foam to put out a fire. It's also used in rugs and carpets, and it's also used in food wrapping, particularly in fast food places. The firefighters, not just across Maryland, but across the nation, developed a concern when more and more of their firefighters were coming down with cancer. And in fact, I believe cancer is the greatest area of mortality than in any other thing for firefighters, including getting killed fighting a fire. Now, I can't point to 20 studies that say inexplicably they are linked and it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. But from the EPA to medical societies, they all say there is a link. But not only that, ladies and gentlemen, it stays in your body a long time. Its half-life is extremely long, and it accumulates. So it is a chemical, and they know it's harmful in many areas. They have found the link in a number of areas, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Additionally, it's being found more and more in our drinking water. I think 75% of the tests MDE has done of drinking water coming from wastewater treatment systems and elsewhere, 75% they're finding significant levels of PFAS. So the firefighters have said, you know, enough is enough here. We think it's dangerous, and we have today before us a bill, 273, that addresses the issue. It establishes and expands several prohibitions and requirements that relate to the manufacture, sale, and distribution for use in the state of Maryland of these products. And the language in the law says intentionally added to PFAS, because sometimes we don't know how PFAS comes from naturally. So the bill says intentionally added. Existing penalties apply to violations. The bill establishes related reporting requirements and authorizes the Maryland Department of the Environment to adopt regulations to implement certain provisions of the bill. And again, it's in those three areas. Foam, firefighters using it, rugs and carpets, that's used, stain resistant, some other reasons, and there are other chemicals that can be used. And then in certain food wrapping, not in all food wrapping. Amendment 1 is technical. Amendment 2 narrows the definition of PFAS, which was recommended to us. It delays the effective date of restrictions imposed under the bill and clarifies the responsibilities of manufacturers and distributors and retailers of rugs, carpets, and food packaging that contains intentionally added PFAS chemicals. Amendment 3 establishes a state buyback and disposal program for PFAS containing firefighting foam in the possession of local fire departments. NACO said, look, we've invested money, and a lot of these fire companies have it at their disposal, and they put money in for it. So the sponsor and Budget and Tax and others have included a buyback program, so there's no liability to the counties for any unused PFAS, and it imbues MDE with a strategy for disposing of it in a careful way. So, Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any other questions if I can, but I would move the 3 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. And I would say also, colleagues, it passed 11-0 in our committee.
Thank you, Senator. The Senator has moved the 3 committee amendments in the favorable committee report. Question first is on the amendments. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended committee report. Any discussion? If not, all in favor of the report say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The favorable committee report as amended is adopted. Chair recognizes, are there any amendments to the bill? Chair recognizes the Senator from District 30.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The product that we have before us as amended now really represents the coming together of many different stakeholders from across the industry, the firefighters, the retailers, everyone.
Senator, does the Senator have an amendment?
I do. I rise
okay,
for the
let's
purpose
collect
of
the
the
amendment first.
Sorry.
The amendment.
Yes, I rise for the purpose of the amendment.
We, at the moment, we have nothing before us.
And the number is, oh gosh.
We do need it this time. The last 3 digits.
Last 3 digits, 521.
521. All right, give us just one moment. 521. Senators, it should be on your computers. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you. We have a number of, we have one in particular company in Cecil County that utilizes PFAS for very specific reasons, one of which is to hold COVID-19 vaccines. The bill as amended clarifies that the definition only applies to rugs, carpets, food packaging.
One moment, Senator. Is it on the laptop, Senators? Do Senators have it on the laptop? Senator may proceed.
Food packaging and firefighter foam, already clarified in the bill. We were asked by this one company in Maryland that we further clarified to make sure that the definition would not impact this important product that they are producing. And so I've spoken with the chair of the committee, and I hope the committee would view it as a favorable amendment.
All right, senators move the amendment. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Mr. President, Senate, we do in fact see it as a friendly amendment, and it does no harm to the bill.
All right, the chair has no objection to the amendment. Are there any objections to the inclusion of the amendment? Without objection, the amendment will be adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 273 is hereby ordered printed for third reader. All right, we have a special order. This is number 21. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 77, Senator West, Health Occupations Boards, Investigations, Right to Counsel. Question is on the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, the question before the body is on the two amendments. I know there might be another one, and then the sponsor is not here today. Yeah. Chair recognizes the minority leader.
Right. I would like to special order this to Monday. The sponsor had an emergency he had to do and requested if we could just delay it until he comes back.
Certainly. Are there any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, the bill and the amendments will be special ordered to the appropriate. Oh, let's pull that back. Tuesday? Is that everyone okay with Tuesday? All right. Without objection, the bill and the amendments will be special ordered to the appropriate time on Tuesday. All right. We've got number 22, special order 22. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 381, Senator Smith, Natural Resources, Wildlife Trafficking Prevention. Bill is on third reading for final passage.
All right, Senators, Senate Bill 381 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Chair recognizes the senator from District 4.
Yeah, I've been talking to the sponsor of this. I just asked special order one more day. There's a National Zoo Association which they were going to reach out and talk to the sponsor about it.
Floor leader for the bill. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the special order.
We're okay to special order for one more day.
All right, committee has no objection to the special order. Are there any objections? Without objection, the bill will be special order to the appropriate time on Tuesday. All right. Next we have another special order. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 119, Senator Washington, Education, Crimes on School Grounds Application. Question is on the adoption of the favorable report.
All right, question is on the report. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the adoption of the committee report, there are going to be some amendments, and it looks like we're going to have a conversation on this. And I'm sure you all are aware of how the discussion was handled in the other chamber, and I am very confident that we will not devolve into that sort of discourse here. But I thought I wanted to make sure that we do understand exactly what the bill is and what it is not. So I'm going to talk about specifically, we're talking about SB 119, and that currently under Maryland law, a student can be charged with a misdemeanor crime punishable with up to 6 months and $2,400 if they willfully disturb or otherwise willfully prevent orderly conduct of activities in a classroom or administration in a high school, elementary school, or higher education. The second part that I want to raise, because I'm sure there'll be some questions, and it really has to do with the fact that this is a very old statute that has been amended over time and that words change meanings. So the second part of it says that a person may not molest or threaten with bodily harm any employee, administrator, agent, or any other individual. Now the term molest is used in this particular statute has a meaning of harassment or threats, okay? The statute in that particular sentence has to be read as a whole. So it does not mean sexual molestation in the terms of this statute. It is a synonym for harass, so I want to be very clear about that. And when speaking to the Office of the Public Defender, this statute has never been used to charge for a sexual assault. As with all things juvenile, any child can be charged with conduct that can be a crime if committed by an adult. So if there is indeed a sexual assault or crime, that would be charged under Maryland Law 3-301. Also, according to the public defender on this issue of molest, her last sex offense case was a child charged with a 4th-degree sex offense, which is touching another child's buttocks in the school cafeteria. They were not charged under 26-101, as it is not applicable. We also reviewed the appellate cases in the statute, and we could not find any regarding a sexual offense under that molestation. The second thing I need to review has to do with the location of the disturbance. It also talks about the location of the disturbance being on the grounds or the immediate facility of an institution, on a school vehicle, any activity sponsored by the school, and any property that is owned. What SB 119 does is that it excludes students of a school from being charged under 26-101 if they're there present on the school grounds, or if they're a student visiting like with a sports team. So this is a really important bill. And I know this isn't a hearing, but we are, because there are amendments and there's going to be extended discussion, we're sort of like a little bit of a committee of a whole. And I just want to make it really clear the motivation that I'm an educator. I've taught in elementary school and college. I have children that have been educated in the public education system. And I'm absolutely committed to their safety of our students and educators and staff. And I am not in any least naive about the challenges that we face in our current schools. And so when I came to the Senate, I was honored to serve on the Judicial Proceedings Committee, and along with another member of this body. And I find, interestingly, that looking at the criminal code and law is very important when we're looking at judicial matters. So I want to raise 3 main points, again, on the adoption of the committee amendment. First, this is not new territory, colleagues. We've done a lot already to decriminalize nonviolent adult behavior. We know we need to begin to address the school to prison pipeline. And we know we need to address reforms to our juvenile justice system. So let me give you an example of how this is applied under this particular statute that, frankly, I believe should be repealed in total, but through negotiations with school systems, et cetera, we're just simply making this revision. If Kid A gets into a fight with Kid B, right, Kid A can be charged with assault and disturbing school operations. If at trial, so remember, under this, because it's a misdemeanor, there will be a trial. If the trial is clear that it was just like a mutual affray, in other words, you had 2 kids fighting each other, Kid A cannot be found guilty of assault, but then they still can be found guilty of disturbing school operations. I think all of us saw, once again, with the help of video cameras, I believe it was in Minneapolis, where you saw two high school students of different races engaged in a fight. One student, the black student, was arrested by 3 officers, and again, this was in a school. What the white student had the opportunity to sit on the couch and watch the other student be arrested. So this is an example of, say, that case went to court. He would not be probably found guilty of an assault because it was a mutual exchange, but they would be found guilty of disturbing the peace. Under SB 119, Kid A cannot be charged. Second, it's not equitably applied, as I just said. Disturbance is very subjective. And Maryland's legal system contains many laws that unnecessarily bring young people disproportionately, students with disabilities, and youth of color to the attention of the justice system. And 3, most people's contact with the system results from labeling typical adolescent behavior that stems from trauma, abuse, neglect as criminal. So instead of seeing behavior as an indicator of a need for support, we see it as a crime. Students, and third, it does not make our schools safer. Referring youth to the justice system for so-called disruptive behavior is ineffective, harmful, and a poor use of scarce resources. Now, finally, and again, I know not finally, we'll continue to discuss this, but again, the bigger problem with threats in 26104 is that there is no requirement that there be an ability to actually cause physical contact or harm, and instead allows the policing of words alone. This is really key. This is especially problematic when we're talking about children who are likely to make an offhand comment like, or as a joke, thinking about someone, or you were fighting and you're upset and you say, I'm gonna get her. While upset in the moment, that student, and this is a real example, could be charged. They weren't charged with a fight because they weren't the instigator, but they could be charged for harassment, for the harassment provision. So again, I just wanted to give us a context of what this bill is and what this bill it is not. It is not taking funding away from policing. It is not reducing anything. It is looking at a provision that is not consistent with how we handle discipline in our state today. So, thank you.
All right, on the report, Chair recognizes the senator from District 4.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I do have concerns about this legislation in front of us. Earlier, or during the special session, I got up and I talked about the issue of restraint and seclusion in schools. And many of you may not be aware, but I had so many parents and teachers contacting me, I didn't know what to do with it, so I put it together in a report. And obviously, seclusion and restraint, there's another bill dealing with that, but part of the information that I was getting from parents and teachers was another end of problem in our schools, which was assaults on students, assaults on teachers, breaking of windows, destruction of property, and there was almost no recourse and nothing happening. And as a parent with 3 kids in school, public schools right now, I can tell you this is a big concern that I have firsthand from dealing with the school system. And I believe it's the actions that this body has done that has made it harder for our teachers, harder for our administrators to function. So for example, when kids get in trouble now, they give them a referral in Frederick County Public Schools. When I've asked the administration, teachers, everything else, what does that mean? They have told me they don't know. So I have a real concern about lack of accountability in schools. And when you talk about the, quote, pipe to prison to school pipeline, well, when we don't have accountability and we don't have consequences, and young people learn that, when then do they become adults, learn to become accountable and follow the rules? But my real concern about this legislation, if the floor leader would yield for a question.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
So the legislation in front of us would say to include young people who are suspended, correct? All right, well, my concern is that this body passed legislation saying that you could not suspend a student unless they were, quote, an imminent threat. Isn't that correct?
Continue. That's a rhetorical question, so yes.
Yeah, so we passed legislation saying that they are an imminent threat. So they are being suspended because they're an imminent threat to do potentially harm to another student or themselves. That's what this body has said. Mm-hmm. And now we are passing legislation to say if they trespass, they are told to stay away. If they criminally come back and trespass on school property, police cannot then intervene and remove somebody who's been dubbed an imminent threat under our laws. Isn't that correct?
That is actually not correct. And that is the point of this bill. And you know this, that there are frankly, in our code, a principal or a SRO can have a child or anyone arrested or taken away from the campus just by making the phone call. You don't need this particular provision. And again, I want us to all focus on, if you could, this particular provision it's vague, and it does not at all, removing students from it does not at all remove any other powers that they have in other parts of the code.
So you're saying that under this, you could charge somebody criminally with trespassing?
No, not under this, but under other provisions.
How would that be allowed? Because this bill explicitly exempts these students.
No, it does not. It exempts it from being charged with disturbance. If you say trespassing, Senator, if you say there is a student trespassing, that the police can come and remove that student. But if instead you just said, oh, there's a student causing a disturbance, so I'm saying our bill says that don't call and say there's a student causing a disturbance. Our bill would say then, which again, under even the under our code title, our Title VII, there's a list of reportable offenses. That would be what you would call, and you could still do it. This does not prohibit or supersede
I guess
any
my
other
question
part
then
of
is,
Senators, just a quick reminder for the ongoing debate, just please, we'll do ask and answer. We're just going to go back and forth, and just reminders, no you, the others, it's the senator from, and please refer to senators. Theoretically, all responses should be directed towards the
Correct.
chair so that we can have an orderly debate. And
well,
appreciate
I guess my question, Mr. President, is this. Why we would put legislation on the floor for students that we have deemed an imminent threat, we've passed laws that, and this explicitly includes students who are suspended and students from other schools who then show up and disrupt and cause problems at another school or go back to their current school. And why it is good public policy to, we've already made it so hard to suspend a student from public schools. I disagreed with that bill. I think the consequences of what we have done in the past for student discipline are trickling all throughout the system in negative ways right now. But, Mr. President, I would say this, that the fact that this legislation explicitly talks about students who are suspended and have been removed from schools and then further handicaps schools to be able to stop their ability when they show up and disrupt, I think that's a real problem. And as a state senator, as a parent, I have a real problem with this legislation. We've already gone too far in handcuffing our administrators and our teachers, and now we're making it even harder for children they've already suspended who are coming back and causing problems in schools and disrupting. So I have a real problem with this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the minority whip on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I wonder if my colleague, the floor leader, would yield for a couple of questions.
It appears so. Senator may proceed.
Thank you. First of all, I looked at the title of this bill as we've been discussing it, and the title of the bill is Education, Crime on School Grounds Application. I'm looking through the bill testimony, and I did not see any parents that showed up to testify, or any PTAs or school organizations or any individual students. Is it fair to say that there was no testimony for or against the bill?
That is not actually correct. In fact, a mother from Crofton, Maryland, testified. She testified in person and also provided written testimony. Lori Taylor. Her testimony says that when my daughter was in her first year of middle school and just 11 years old, a substitute asked her to get out of her seat and go to another assigned seat. My daughter suffers from anxiety for years. Her 504 plan indicates that if she's called out in front of others, that she tends to shut down. So her daughter simply froze. The assistant principal couldn't think of a way to resolve it, so she called 911, stating that the student was disrupting school activities. 3 officers arrived. The officer asked her why she wasn't listening. She shrugged and said, "I don't know." She was told to stand up and put her hands behind her back. She was handcuffed, arrested, and charged with disturbing activities or personnel. She was taken to a district police office, and 3 hours later, that's when she was able to get her daughter. When she questioned the arresting officer, he told me that when a school calls with this type of report, disturbing a school, they are required to arrest the child. And she asks us, when there are no signs of violence or threatening language used by a student, why is the student's behavior criminalized?
I think that's a very fair question. And I think that's an excellent idea for a bill that targets that kind of language in the law. Here's my question. We have MSEA in here. They were favorable with amendments.
Right.
Was there amendment that, did the committee add any amendments to the bill?
We're asking for adoption without a committee amendment.
Without a committee amendment. Because what their testimony says, and I have my share of disagreements from time to time with MSEA, but they believe, they like the overall aim of the bill, but they believe it exempts students from responsibility for too many offenses. And as such, they believe an amendment that simply exempts students from criminal charges from those items enumerated in 26-101, which we've gone over, would be the appropriate course of action. I think our concern, as some of us have spoken on the floor today, is this is too broad, and it is taking any kind of enforcement out. Besides, yes, someone can come try to charge someone criminally for trespass, but being able to have an ability to deal with a problem right then in the school system is the best way to go. You've mentioned the woman that testified. That sounds like something that does need to be fixed. But we used to have, when I was in the Judicial Proceedings Committee, there's a saying that's used a lot: hard cases make bad law. Sometimes you need to make an adjustment in the code, but to totally throw out the enforcement mechanism that's in the education article, was very far. But you would not agree, I assume, with that assertion.
If this is a real question, we are not throwing out the enforcement of the degree of it. Frank, let me just, in the public school article 7-303, a principal may make a report to any relevant law enforcement officer if after an investigation is completed. The other thing is there's no due process at all in this type of, this part of the law. They can, again, the school principal has reason to believe, and again, it's there, that a student has engaged in conduct, a criminal law, assault in the first degree, 3-201, 3-205, 3-804 criminal law, revenge porn, misuse of any number of things. This is already in the education, so it is simply a misreading, of the code.
So can I ask then, why was MSEA thinking that it needs an adjustment? Because they're hardly a hard right law and order organization. They're concerned about their members. They're concerned, and that's honestly, the gentleman from Frederick County talked about this. I hear from parents, but I hear from teachers all the time that the current system of discipline gives them no tools other than to just try to dissuade the student, to try to maneuver a student. And if a student is defiant, you're kind of out of luck. And I'm not suggesting, of course, that you call the police because the student's defiant, but if there's real serious kinds of issues that this is laid out in this part of the code, we're removing, you keep saying that there's tools, it's removing this tool from the tool belt, and it sends a powerful message. It sends a powerful message that we're going to tolerate more of this behavior.
Right. So I think to answer your question, I don't know why, but I do know that we have to look at our laws in toto. So I do think that there is a tendency to just read one section of a code and not put it in its context. So what we're saying is that there is this particular part of the code it's redundant. In other words, there have been other pieces that supersede that and are better. So MABE, the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, support SB 119 because it would retain the prohibition against non-students conducted in the education article. And they also say that MABE has adopted the position of the state board's initiatives that are making sure that they prohibit zero tolerance, but also believe that they have enough flexibility in the existing code, because they originally articulated the position that you articulated, but when I actually went through all of these and showed them, which I didn't have an opportunity with MSEA, they said, oh, yes, we do have lots of codes. And then just one more, 7-305, again in the education code, each principal of a public school may suspend for cause for not more than 10 days any student who is under the direction of the principal. So a principal, they can suspend for any reason at all. Also, it also, once they're suspended, so there was a question about if the student comes back, it says the expelled or suspended student may only return to school if they have an appointment or if they're accompanied by their adult and that it has been approved. If they violate, so if a suspended student, again, this is in code 7-301, if a suspended student comes back, they are guilty of a misdemeanor and on conviction subject to fine.
Thank you for the answers to my questions. I appreciate the dialogue. Mr. President, I think the concern here is that we have gone a long way and we're moving too fast on some of this. And there is a crisis in our schools of discipline, of teachers being treated properly and fairly. Administration at times can be frozen because they don't want to run afoul of the prevailing winds of sort of the prevailing winds that are out there about over-discipline. But it's leaving a lot of our teachers and our students. My concern is teachers, and my concern is the rest of the kids in the class when things happen. And every child has a right to learn. And we've heard earlier about some of the statistics that I agree are concerning, that there seems to be an imbalance by the statistics. There's also a lot of schools where those young men and women might have been getting in trouble. There's a lot of other children that are in the same group that aren't able to learn because of disruptive behavior. The last thing I'll say is there's a big difference between charges and convictions. Now, we don't want children being charged for being slightly disruptive, of course. But by just wiping this out of the law, I think it's dangerous. Here's what I would say. The floor leader was very eloquent in talking about how different sections of the law can overlap and all that. I think it would be wise to have another community of jurisdiction just check this bill to be sure that we're not doing something very grievous. I know why it was in the committee it's in the education article, it's appropriate, but I think it would be wise to perhaps special order this another day and allow the Judicial Proceedings Committee to take a look at it. I'm not a member of that committee, but that's what I think would be perhaps prudent.
Is the Senator moving to special order the bill?
I would move to special order the bill and allow the Judicial Proceedings Committee to take a look at the bill.
All right, the Senator has moved to special order the bill. We have a number of senators that appear to have questions still. Let's check with the floor leader on the special order.
I'd like to resist the special order.
All right, the Senator is resisting the special order. Question before the body is whether to special
Mr.
order.
President, I'd like to do a roll call on the special order.
Senator requests a roll call. The clerk will call the roll on the motion of special order.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the negative, the Senator's motion does not prevail. Further discussion we have on the favorable committee report. Chair recognizes the Senator from the 34th District on the report.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So colleagues, we've been told that, hey, you can just charge these kids. You don't have to have it under the education article. You can just charge them with assault. Well, let's compare the two articles. If you're charged under this educational article, the maximum penalty is 6 months, just 6 months. That's the maximum penalty under the educational article. If you're charged for assault under the criminal statute, you're facing up to 10 years. So do we really want to say, let's hold on, just hit them under the criminal law article, don't go under the educational article. Let's give them a 10-year potential penalty instead of a 6-month penalty. I don't think so. I don't understand why that's being encouraged. I think that when we look at this thing, the Maryland Educational Association letter is very instructive. And what they were asking for with this bill, which of course all these bills now get hijacked by special interest groups and taken to the nth degree, which has nothing to do with common sense, we increasingly find out. But all they were asking was to remove the one section from the bill. They were just asking for the section that says a person may not willfully disturb or otherwise willfully prevent the orderly conduct. That's a pretty low standard for criminal conduct, that you couldn't willfully disturb or prevent orderly conduct. So I understand where the Maryland Education Association is going. They're saying that's too low of a bar for a criminal charge. So, but that's not what the bill does. The bill goes so far beyond that, and that's why MEA has a problem with it, because we do have violent assaults in our schools, and at times the police do have to come in. Let's face it, if the assailant is 225 pounds, and then he's dealing with teachers that are all of 180 pounds, you better bring in the cops. Otherwise, what we're saying here is teachers just have to sit there and accept that you know, you're going to have to accept this other behavior, or you have to charge for a criminal assault. And I'm not sure that's where we want to be going with this. If you also look at this, it says that for some reason, we're not only protecting kids who are attending institutions. You have a sports game, and kids who can come in and start fights, we're gonna exclude you. You're coming into somebody else's school. You just have to be a student somewhere in Maryland. If you're coming to a sports game, you can't be charged on this either. We got to take you up to assault and battery. We can't just charge you under the under the educational article. We've got to file up at a higher level. I don't know why we want to do that. We all know there's fights. There's some bad fights at sporting events. We need to reduce those, not encourage them. This sends a public message that we're gonna go after we're gonna be more tolerant. We did that last year. We sent a message to the public. We sent a number of them. We sent a number of them last year to the public that we were going to be much more tolerant on violent crime. We're going to be much more harsh on police officers. And there's ramifications. And unless you've been asleep, the ramifications have been really ugly. Murder rates skyrocketed in virtually everybody's jurisdiction, particularly the urban areas. And so are we really going to turn around and send another message? Is that what this body wants to do? Is once again, for the umpteenth time, send a loud and clear message that we're rolling back the protections. We're siding with offenders against the victims. We're really going to tell folks that the teachers, we already have teacher shortages. We're going to tell the teachers, the administrators, once again, hey, we don't have your back. That's really what we're going to do now. In these times of heightened violence in our schools and in society, this body would send a message, just one more message, that we are more tolerant, we're much more accepting, we're more protective of the offenders than those who are affected by the offense. At some point, this body has to stop putting the interests of those who would beat and disturb the lawful order of society. They've got to put the interests of the victims ahead of those folks. And this bill, one more message that, hey, it's okay to disturb. It's okay to shut down the school. Let Johnny shut down the school. I mean, I'm wondering how if you can't charge some of this stuff, what is the remedy? You expect the school just to sit there? We can't even charge kids who've already been excluded. This doesn't even kids already excluded. You're already on currently on exclusionary discipline. This says you can't even charge them. The kid who, what's the result? The only remedy they have to do is let Junior come traipsing on there and pop somebody real good and then charge him with a felony assault or something. They can't just call and say, hey, this guy's here. We expelled him. He can't be on here. We suspended him. And he's coming on, he's walking on the campus. No, all we have there is maybe a simple trespass at the most. There's no teeth to it, no teeth. So we're going to have to stand up for our teachers. We didn't stand up for the cops. We got that. And we're all suffering for that. The murder rates have gone up. We didn't stand up for the cops. We did stand up for the perpetrators. They feel they now have licenses to kill. They appreciate that. And now we're not going to stand up for the teachers. We're not going to stand up for the administrators. It's one more nail in the coffin, folks. Mr. President, I'm going to have amendments. I do have an amendment I requested. Unfortunately, has an error in it, so I'm going to ask that we at least lay this over long enough for me to allow the correct amendment come in. I have two amendments that came in correctly, but the other one really should be the first amendment. And I'm
we
waiting
sti-
for the corrected version.
We still have this, we're still on the report,
I
the
understand.
favorable report.
I just want
So-
to let you know what I was.
Oh, fair enough.
Thank you.
Senator.
Thank you.
All right, Chair recognizes Senator from District 10, followed by the Senator from District 6.
Thank you. Colleagues, I've been a teacher all my adult life, and one of the things I've noticed, and I've worked on a lot of education boards, commissions, and panels to do special work to make schools more effective, to help teachers and the students. It is clear to me that we often forget about taking the child where they are when they come in and having the resources that many teachers in schools don't have to look at what life has already done to many of the children who step across the field, including things done to them in schools. I have sat on disciplinary committees in schools, and I have worked with parent-teacher associations in schools, and I have served on state boards and commissions to deal with public education. And it is very clear to me that just as the teachers deserve respect, and they do, children from all backgrounds and who come with all kinds of abilities and disabilities deserve respect and to be treated on an individualized basis. Now, because we haven't paid teachers all that well, a lot of times we have in the schools people who haven't had the educational psychology courses and the various things they need, so they come ill-prepared also to do their jobs. And in some such cases, the only thing they know to do if Johnny is acting up or isn't sitting in his seat just staring ahead is to say, you are a problem, you deserve disciplinary removal. Our job is to give our schools more school psychologists and guidance counselors, more people to help those teachers who are in their first 2 or 3 years and on probation. They do have a tough job, but they are asking to do that job, and we need to help them to do it well. A teacher does not have the right, in spite of the challenges of the job, to assume that some children are not redeemable because they do something one day that interrupts class order. And in many cases, that is the problem. They don't know that the child's parent might have lost their job. Think of all those people that we talked to last year who didn't get their unemployment insurance. The child who comes to school hungry and worried about if the family will have to move, or who during the worst of the pandemic was taking care of the baby and grandma, the 9-year-old or the 8-year-old needing to do that because the parent had to go to work. They couldn't work virtually. Or they lived in an area in Baltimore City or in upper parts of Baltimore County where there's no broadband. So if their parents didn't go out with the transportation system now more limited, and it means the child is home alone with the duties of an adult because of problems in our society, an economy which the child didn't disrupt, but which if their family does not have means, the child must suffer through. So they don't come to school when they are there prepared to learn sometimes until we deal with the socioeconomic and psychological problems that children in some families are having to bear as if they were adults. We need to save the police for the jobs they need to do and to call them only when necessary. We don't need all of the police that we have sitting in schools. We need more school resource officers who are sociologists and who are psychologists and who know how to relate to the cause of the acting out on the part of children who don't have the resources in life to do well in school until we address those problems. I have been very impressed with listening to the sponsor floor leader explain to us what is in the code in this regard, the inconsistencies in the code, because we change one thing and we leave something else that might impact the same problem we thought we had fixed. We need to all be more humble. We need to thank whatever God we pray to or source of strength that we draw from. Because the fact that we are here, given our various differences in early childhood and what we were born into, for having gotten as far as we have, because it isn't because we are so smart and so good. We have been blessed, and we should not take for granted that people born into structural poverty and who don't have parents who can help them the way that our parents in some cases tried to help us, because of the very kinds of problems that need to be fixed in the schools. If we can send our kids to private schools where the latest in social psychology and educational psychology is reflective of the atmosphere and of the handling of problems, it's very different than if people who come from a very different background, very few poor teachers, poor children are taught by people who understand their background and the challenges and the economic deprivation and the lack of proper social services and the lack of broadband in their community and what it means for a 9-year-old to go home and have to be in charge of the baby until the mother arrives many hours later without her unemployment check still and without proper transportation. I'll shut up after I say one other thing. When I think how when our committee did a tour to Sparrows Point 3 summers ago, I guess it was now, and to hear them tell us that they were hiring people from Delaware because what had happened to the transportation in Baltimore City was so structurally damning that when they went out to check how long it took for people to get there from West Baltimore, many people could drive from Delaware and get there quicker, and they were getting the jobs rather than Baltimore City residents who wanted the jobs and could do the work but could not arrive on time. It would take 2.5 hours sometimes for them to get from Baltimore City right to Baltimore County to Sparrows Point. We must be more humble and learn more before we speak or before we judge about the life conditions of other people. And we do need to give the schools and the principals and the teachers more to work with. They need some psychologists and social workers and some people who can model things that these kids could emulate as ways of resolving conflicts and just lack of understanding. And kids do recognize disrespect. And I have worked in schools where children from certain backgrounds were simply disrespected. We don't have any throwaway kids. Some of the people who have risen to the greatest heights in our country and in our world started off poor, deprived, and somehow there was an injection of hope, maybe placed by a good teacher who saw what they could be and who helped. That's what we need, and not to send more kids to jail. The problem, largely, our fiscal notes are bigger than they need to be because we are sending to jail people who otherwise, if we did the right things by them, could be productive and helpful. I will shut up, but it's on my heart. I guess I'm the oldest one in here, and sometimes you need to listen to your elders. Thank you.
Well said, Senator. Chair Guys, Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, this is as you've heard the people say on the floor, it's so much commotion about this. I've met with every principal in my district. And I had an opportunity to personally talk to every principal. An opportunity to talk to parents, to talk to teachers, to talk to counselors, to talk to those that are the heart and soul of the schools. And the problem is, major problem is discipline and consequences. And it's ongoing because there's teachers that are handcuffed and they can't do their job. There's SROs that are handcuffed, they can't do their job. There is a major problem because the discipline in the schools and how it's so out of control. Because there's kids that are being bullied. And we can minimize things and say that they're okay when they're not. Because I get the letters like you do, you get the phone calls like I do. And we get conversations constantly of the problems that we have in our schools. And if we don't address these serious problems the right way, and if we are too lenient, like we already are in our state and our nation, of crime or discipline, we are going to continue to draw the line further away from us. And that's exactly what we're doing. There's got to be accountability. There has to be results in accountability. There's got to be ways that we can answer the call to protect those that are being attacked and violated. I think about the innocent kids that are out there and the paper is being thrown at them 10 or 15 times over and over and over. And they're crying for help. There's kids out there, they're saying, I need help. And at times, mom and dad's not out there. You know why? Because they're both working 2 jobs. And they're having a hard time even getting to school. And one of the problems that I found out from every principal is that the parent doesn't give the time to the school to find out what's going on. And then the kid's not coming to school because they're being bullied. And it is a problem. So if we draw this line further away from us, and we say it's going to be okay to throw something at someone, it's going to be okay to continue to harass or do things to another student, it's going to be okay to do something to a teacher, then what are we doing? We're justifying wrong. We're supposed to honor those that are in authority. We're supposed to honor those that are teaching us. We're supposed to honor those and respect those. And right now, this bill will not do that. There needs to be accountability. And we need to be responsible as senators to do the right thing and the best thing for our students, to protect them and do the best we can to answer the call for them. And I believe if we do that, we wouldn't pass this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Chair recognizes the Senator from District 9, followed by the Senator from District 29, followed by the Senator from District 8. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 9 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been a lot of conversation about this bill today, and I just wanted to encourage everybody to go back 2 years ago to when we passed the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. In HB 1300, on pages 177 through 189, there is a massive amendment around the Community Supports Partnership. And we put this amendment in for many reasons, some of which have been talked about today, including the need to support the mental and behavioral health of our students, and also to give our teachers more consistent standards in their ability to work on discipline and positive classroom behavior. So I just want to refresh your memory, because I feel like there's been a sense that the General Assembly has done nothing on this topic, and in fact we've done quite a lot. So first of all, the purpose of the Community Supports Partnership is to deliver evidence-based, culturally competent mental behavioral health services to Maryland students in a manner that partners with providers and surrounding community and leverages to the full extent possible federal and public funding. So in this part of the bill, we require that every school system appoints a behavioral health services coordinator. We require MSDE to dedicate staff to coordinate and support the work of behavioral health specialists. It creates and establishes the Maryland Consortium on Community Supports Partnerships staffed by the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission. Now, there are 3 parts to what this commission is going to do. First, it provides expertise for the purposes of coordinating behavioral health resources. Second, it works on a model for the state, which will be one of the first in the nation to expand available health services and leverage available Maryland the Medicaid assistance. We expect to get millions of dollars extra to treat these students who need help. And the third part, which I really encourage folks to read, is that it provides evidence-based best practices for the implementation of a positive classroom environment for all students and technical assistance to local school systems to ensure consistent implementations of regulations. And this isn't just a consortium because it has a partnership fund. We've already given $25 million for mental and behavioral health. There'll be $50 million in '23, up to $125 million in FY26. And I'd really just like to encourage everybody to read this before they continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 29 on the report.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Colleagues, one of our biggest jobs here in the Senate as leaders is to listen, not just direct our own agenda. It's very important that we listened to the parents who have children in the classrooms. It's important that we listen to the children who are living in the classroom every day, some of them not having the best results as our virtual learning, as we all see. It's important that we listen to the teachers that are in the classroom who are living with these children every single day. And I'd like to agree with the senator from Baltimore County. There is absolutely no intention. I don't think any one of us wants to send our children to jail. That is not what education and what we stand for. I would like to ask the floor leader to yield for a question.
The floor to yield appears so. Senator may proceed.
In looking through the bill file, I see a letter from Anne Arundel County Schools. Did the committee discuss the request for an amendment removing children who are currently on exclusionary discipline?
Yes, we discussed it, and as I articulated earlier, that power to exclude those students is already provided for in the code.
So thank you. The letter of information from the Anne Arundel County Public Schools, who live this every day, said we appreciate the sponsors amending the bill this year to specifically exclude students by clarifying the application of this section of the education article. A person who is not a student and enters a school and willfully disturbs the ongoing education being conducted would still be subject to a charge and penalty under this law. While this new language is incredibly helpful, we find the provision in this legislation, which would include students who are currently on exclusionary discipline, troublesome. They find it troublesome as they believe this language creates safety concerns in their schools. These are the people in the schools who said, please adopt this because this is a safety concern in our schools. As such, they urge the committee to strike this language from the proposed legislation. With the enhanced discipline for students, as we heard from our colleague from Harford County, such as when we deal with assault, moving it from 6 months to 10 years, it's legislation like this that feeds what we hear so much about, the school to prison pipeline. I would ask that this bill be recommitted to committee so that they can take a better look at this.
All right, the senator has moved to recommit the bill. Chair recognizes the floor leader on the senator's motion.
I'd ask the body to resist this movement.
All right,
I
On
request.
the motion, Chair recognizes, requests a roll call vote. The clerk, on the motion, clerk will, all right, Chair
Can I say
recognizes
something real
Senator
quick?
from District
On the
7.
motion, the senator from District 9 brought up a point I've been trying to find to read. So I think out of courtesy for her and what she told us to look at, we should possibly look at this special order. Out of respect to her, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. All right, with 30 votes in the negative, the senator's motion does not prevail. All right, on the favorable report, further discussion. Any senators who, oh yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 8.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader please yield?
Appears so. Senator may proceed.
And I know that it was brought up before, but you did not take the MSEA amendments?
That is correct.
Okay. And why not? I must have missed that.
Because it's covered in other parts of the code. So specifically related to principals' powers to remove suspended students, that's in Article 7-305. And if I can just repeat that, that each principal has the right to suspend anyone, and it says that if anybody violates that, they're guilty of a misdemeanor. So it's already provided for. It's not necessary.
But it's still, it's very, very hard and for teachers and principals to, we're having trouble today. We've been talking about this for how long, an hour? How do you think a principal feels, or how do you think a teacher feels? And this is very complicated, and I agree with the senator from the 7th District that we have the information over here, and she suggested we read it. I can't read it while I'm listening and trying to make sense of this whole thing. But I do know, I have a daughter who is a teacher in middle school, and every time I talk to her, she said, "Mom, you have to do something about the discipline." And I say, well, okay, we will. This is the time we're going to do it. I agree with what the senator said from the 10th District. We need help. We need all of those wraparound services. But if you let children get away with things 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, it gets worse and worse. And that's what's happening in the schools. I just said, she said one time, a student pulled the alarm, the fire alarm. So what happens? All the fire trucks come, right? The second time he did it, didn't get any reprimands. The third time, they finally got suspended. Now, when you finally get suspended, to me, that's a day off of school. Yay. That's when you need to get help. But you should have had help the first time the child did that. So I just think that the discipline has gone way too far in our school systems. We need to help with all the wraparound services, but you can't, there must be consequences. And that's all I have to say.
If I could just say, and thank you so much, in all due respect, there is consequences, and those consequences are in the law, and part of our responsibility as elected officials is not to simply repeat untruths. The truth of the matter is that it's right in terms of no consequences. That's the disparity, not the perception, but it's just that it's in the code. So
it might be in the code, but I don't think it's being adhered to, so
that's a different problem.
We can agree to disagree with that.
All right, on the report, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the senator from District 4.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'd ask that we do a recorded vote on second reading on this, and I'd just like to speak briefly against adopting this favorable report. I'd like to also point out that it wasn't just MSEA that came in, but actually the same point I brought up about the part about students who are currently on exclusionary discipline, and Arundel County Public Schools came in and asked for an amendment to remove those students who are on exclusionary discipline, who've been suspended, to say, hey, look, if they've been suspended and removed, don't decriminalize it and say it's okay for them to come back and disrupt classes or show up and cause problems. So Anne Arundel County Public Schools said that too. That was in there and submitted. So to me, the focus in favor of this bill has all been about the offender, the rule breaker, the law breaker, and we need to look at things in a balance. Where is the problem in our school system now? What is the problem in our state right now? The problem is that the focus of this General Assembly and the focus of the body has consistently been over the last couple of years in favor of the rule breaker, in favor of the criminal offender, and not in favor of the teacher, the principal, the kid who's just trying to go to school and learn. And what kind of message are we going to send as a body when we just decriminalize disrupting, interrupting, and stopping classes, and especially for kids who have already been suspended? Remember, because of this body, we deemed that you had to be an imminent threat to be suspended. We made it so hard for our teachers and our principals to suspend and remove unruly and undisciplined children, and when they finally were able to remove them because they were an imminent threat. By the way, imminent threat is a high, high legal standard, so it's almost never happening. But even then, Anne Arundel County and other schools said, at least let us deal with those children. This is a terrible message we're sending at a time when we have juvenile crime, we have problems in our school system, and I ask the body to vote this down.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the chair of the committee.
Mr. President, I really didn't want to get up and speak on this, and I think the floor leader's done a fine job. Reducing this bill to its basic elements is if someone does something serious, they can get charged criminally like they can now. And to say that we're equating 6 months and 10 years, it's a maximum. I mean, so we're throwing out some confusion here. And it's somewhat ironic that some of my colleagues on this side of the aisle are worried about the penalties being too strong. And in terms of bullying, this isn't about bullying. It's not about suspension. That can continue. And to my colleague from Baltimore County, in terms of application and implementation, that exists before this bill, it exists after this bill. And it is a real problem and challenge, but that's not what this bill is about. And the last speaker said, you know, where is the problem? Where is the problem? The problem is some of these people acting out have trouble reading, and they act out, and then they want attention, and then they push a child in the classroom. That's where the problem is. And it so happens we had a bill called the Blueprint for Maryland's Future that tried to address that, to make sure everyone can read and calculate by 3rd grade. And it passed in a divided chamber. I don't forget that. I think we all realize that. We tried to deal with it in a preventive fashion. The problem doesn't start when somebody acts out and the response. It starts earlier, to make sure our children, wherever they live, can read, can do math, can think for themselves. And the people, I believe, who voted for it had the vision to say we have to get it at its root cause, as my seatmate talked about a few moments ago. This isn't the problem, the response. And I'll remind you, a few years ago, we had the Safe to Learn Act, after a young woman at Great Mills was murdered. Horrible, horrible situation. We ran to get money to make sure we could have quick police response time, we can have scanners. There was not $1 for a social worker. There was nothing about looking at this in a preventive fashion, in a proactive fashion. But yet we have all this heat and not much light on the response. I'm going to support this bill. I don't think it does the harm people are throwing out there. The harm is not investing in our children at the front end to give them the skills, the wraparound services, so they can be successful and they don't act out. I think it's the right direction. I urge a green vote.
All right, on the report, any further discussion? Chair recognizes the Minority Leader on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm rising in opposition to this. You know, when I go out to my community association throughout Anne Arundel County and throughout the state, people are constantly saying we have a problem with crime, we have a problem in our schools where kids can't learn because of disruption. And so we come down here and we make new policies. And it reiterates the fact that many people just think there's a huge disconnect between this body and the real public. And we try these different progressive ideas, having people just sit down and talk to one another and hope it'll all work out. And we had that debate on Kerwin. And then we hear constantly, just throw more money at it. It'll fix it. And we've seen that in education. We saw it with Thornton. It didn't work. Now, I support wraparound services and things like that, but just throwing 25 more million, 35 more million is not going to solve this problem. What people want is balance. And unfortunately, Annapolis is not giving balance. It's getting more and more extreme. And policies like this, we say we want to handle this situation, so what are we doing? We constantly hear saying, it's just another tool in the toolbox. Well, what this bill says is, let's take some tools out of that toolbox, and that'll help it. It's completely against logic, and I know logic doesn't always work down here, but for those reasons, I'll be against this.
All right, on the report, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, Chair recognizes the Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of the Senator from Frederick County's motion. The chairwoman of Finance spoke very eloquently about her care and passion for our children and our students. Many of us have talked about it today. And I think it's important to emphasize that the reason that I'm fighting so hard on this bill and that many of my colleagues are speaking against this bill is because we care about the children that the bill deals with, not because we don't. I think about the sentiment of there, but for the grace of God go I. I don't know where I'd be in my life without God's grace, without parents that love me, and frankly, without a wife that keeps me in line. And I'm blessed. And I know that there's lots and lots and lots of children, too many children, that don't have a parent, maybe even one loving parent, or certainly or two. And we don't do them any favors by telling them, and that's, make no mistake, this bill sends this message, that our problem is we're being too tough. Our problem is that we're trying to make excuses. They need discipline. We all need discipline. None of us would be here if we weren't in my life, I'm maybe not disciplined enough, but in at least disciplined enough to accomplish the things that we've accomplished in our professional lives or running for office. It takes discipline, and we all started from different places. It also takes humility to understand that everybody needs that discipline in their life. And to hear some of the comments on the floor today about how this can criminalize or how it's throwing children away or something like that, well, you might as well close out the military, because the military doesn't enact discipline and become an elite fighting force by not having very clear, strict guidelines and enforcing discipline. The people who climb out of poverty, who climb out of difficult circumstances, if they're not living a disciplined life where they learn that you have to follow directions and you have to do what you're told, and sometimes you may not like what you're told and you still have to do it, those people, if you don't learn to do that in your life, you won't ever be successful in life. None of us likes to be told what to do. So obviously there are some bad situations that anybody can pull a case out and say, well, this happened and someone overreacted. But we can also pull out a whole lot of cases where there's not a kid afraid of the police, there's a kid afraid that the kid that the police can't come get is going to beat him up before they can learn how to read. This bill we should defeat this bill And yes, if there's some specific instances we'd like to tighten the law in different ways, of course, we're all reasonable to discuss that. But this message that we're sending if we pass this bill is wrong. And I don't want to trivialize by calling it soft on crime, even though I do believe it is. It's sending the wrong message about what we value in our classrooms and for our teachers and our students. There are so many children that are trying to do what's right, and they're trying to learn. And the kids that disrupt, we want to help them too, but we don't help them by removing discipline. We actually hurt them worse. So, Mr. President, I would urge the body, let's reject this bill, and let's maybe start from scratch on a different idea to really drill down on some of these issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Chair recognizes the Senator from District 14.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have been listening very carefully about this debate, and I almost feel like we're debating two different pieces of legislation. What I know is that, and the reason why I stand up to support Senate Bill 119 is that without this legislation, students will be inappropriately criminalized, and will be criminalizing certain student behavior on school premises. And importantly, this bill will exclude only students from the criminal charges provided under this section of the law. This legislation already is in line with past policies that the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee has done in the past. Now, Mr. President, that's not my words, although I would associate my sentiments with it. Those are the words of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education that came out and supported this legislation. So we're all here to support the schools and the people inside the schools, but we want to make sure that predominantly children of color aren't disproportionately impacted by I guess procedures that currently happen in school. And this Senate Bill 119 helps to protect our students inside the school, and I stand by Mabe's comments on the testimony that they submitted to the committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, the chair recognizes the senator from the 34th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, what I've heard in the debate here is that folks who don't support this bill and other bills like it, we don't care about children not learning to read. That's not our interest. That we don't support children receiving other wraparound services. Colleagues, that's not been the debate. That's not where we are as a body. This side of the aisle has supported, for the last 8 years that I've been here, reduced sentences. We've come out for reduced sentences in many crimes. There was the whole Justice Reinvestment Act. But to pretend that this bill, if you don't support this bill, then you are in favor of inappropriately, disproportionately impacting minority children. Colleagues, I look at exactly the opposite. I look at exactly the opposite. What's happening is the problem children, the real serious folks that this bill's, that the law is targeted at, those schools have those wraparound services now. They've got these abilities, and they still have problems. They still have really serious problems. And I hope you're all in your schools as much as I am, and you're in much contact with teachers who are very discouraged. They're very discouraged by the levels of violence, by putting the super problem child's interest above the entire school, so that they spend major parts of their day simply dealing with the problem child and not teaching the other 30 kids in the class, 20 or 30 kids in the class. That those kids are all, their interests are subordinated. So the problem child's interests, they're number one. The world's all about them. The other 25 kids in the class, you just kind of have to sit there and waste your time, even though we see reading skills going down and down and down, right? That report came out. We're not doing well on that front. So to me, I see this bill exactly the mirror. When I look at this bill, I see us, people of privilege, who really most of us are in this body, let's face it, looking at the schools throughout this state that have serious problems with trying to educate anybody, serious problems trying to teach the kids, and saying, suck it up, suck it up, suck it up. No, you can't. You've got to let the violence continue. You have to let the disruptions continue. We know what's better for you. We know what's best. We're here in the General Assembly. Let us tell you how to run your schools. We're taking that tool, as my colleague said, out of the toolbox for those rare cases when the school feels completely helpless, when they're at their end, that their mission has been totally disrupted, the other children are in danger, the teachers are demoralized and in danger. And what we're told is the problem child's interests are always paramount to everybody else in the school. And that's what we're going to take this tool out of the toolbox. We're going to pull it out one more time. Just suck it up and drive on, you teachers, you principals. You're just going to have to incorporate those problems into your normal daily life and just live with it. And the rest of the kids, you're just going to have your educational experience retarded in many ways because of our policies. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, we got a lot of steps left with this bill. Let's go ahead. The Senator's requested a roll call vote. We're going to hear from the floor leader, and then we'll go ahead. Chair recognizes the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to address the issue, I just want again to draw your attention to the Education Code 7-307 that states, this is current law, a principal, teacher, school security guard, or other system personnel in any school may make reasonable action necessary to prevent violence, including intervening in a fight or physical struggle. And also, there's a tremendous amount of flexibility. So people who are listening, it is just simply not true that you don't have this power. The degree and force of the intervention may be as reasonable necessary as to prevent violence, to restore order, and to protect the safety of the combatants and the surrounding individuals. Existing Maryland law provides wide discretion for individuals to protect our students. Now, I just want to say something why I am so committed to this bill. As this bill was actually, its history, it was the first statewide public education bill enacted in 1865. So I want to say that, you know, we had our celebration of the creation of our HBCUs. And so there were people who were doing great things in 1864 and 1865 to expand educational opportunities for African Americans. But this bill, this section, this provision, the very first state law, has its history grounded in individuals who were resisting that integration. And in fact, what it said was the 1865 law provided that any person who shall willfully disturb, interrupt, or disquiet any district school in session, or any person assembled with the permission of the district commissioner for the purpose of giving or receiving instruction. This bill, this section of our law, was to criminalize individuals who wanted to provide instruction to African American students in public schools.
Mr. President, point of order.
Senator,
the speaker is a friend, but I don't think it's appropriate to say that. I think the implication here that this is some sort of racial bill, racist bill.
Senator, this is debate. This is free speech and debate, Senator. Senator, as we were talking about the history, the legislative history of a bill.
The other thing is, as you know, I think I said early on, and we might not want to hear that about our laws, but the thing is, it's in our code. It's about the legislative history of this particular piece of legislation. It's in the book. And it was not immediately made. The person could be committed to jail until the payment was made. Now, the provision, again, this is the history. The provision was amended, this very provision was amended and recodified from time to time. Now, the history of this section is grounded, again, in requiring African Americans to receive slavery, and then it was revised again in the integration of public schools to accommodate sit-ins and protest marches and acts of civil disobedience to achieve peace in our institutions. It was strengthened in 1957, just 3 years following 1954, Thurgood Marshall and NAACP, Brown versus Board of Education. 2 years following January 20th, 1957, Morgan State College students engaged in a sit-in, Drugstore, thank you very much, near Lexington Market in 1955. It was amended, this section, 26101, was amended in 1969 and made it unlawful for any person, organization, or group to disturb any public school in session or to interfere in any matter with the normal operations of schools. In fact, in 1970, they enacted, that's where this criminal provision came in. It strengthened it largely as a result of recent organized protests on college campuses and on our high schools. With the enactment of that law, as there is now, there existed parallel provisions in criminal code. When the bill was presented to the governor, Governor Mandel, in 1970, the sponsor said that this provision, 26101, would, quote, is a handy weapon with which to end these disturbances, disorders, and riots. That was in the Baltimore Sun, May 21st, 1970. Colleagues, the education code should focus on the ultimate goal of student success. The intent, the legislative history of this provision is not about school discipline. And so I'm simply saying, as we have repealed other sections and modified other sections that are inconsistent with our current values and understandings, that is what this piece is about. It is not about school safety. It is about making sure that we do not have the legacy in our code books of discrimination and racism. Thank you.
All right.
I ask for your favorable adoption of this committee.
All right. On the report, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, the favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Chair recognizes the minority whip has an
Thank you,
amendment.
Mr. President. I do have an amendment.
Give us just a moment.
Sure.
All right. All right, there it goes. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. This amendment deals with, on page 2 of the bill, it's something that's come up in the debate quite a bit today. One of the biggest objections that I have to this bill, as I've read through it, is striking out the part dealing with students who are currently on exclusionary discipline from the institution of elementary, secondary, or higher education, where the offense occurs. It's very similar to the concerns raised by Anne Arundel County Board of Education, and I believe MSEA refers to it as well. I'm not sure, but I think it's an appropriate amendment. Mr. President, I'd ask that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
All right, Senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendment will lay over under the rule. Just as a clarification, it looks like we are going to do a pro forma session on Monday. So we will probably recess on Monday so that it would be the same day for Tuesday, so we take this up on Tuesday as opposed to Monday. What's that? We will recess today so that on Monday it will lay over, it will be as a part of unfinished business and lay over on to Tuesday, just so that we can do the pro forma on Monday. All right, we've got a third reading calendar. Is the room full? Looks like it. Let's do a quorum call before third reader.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We've got third reading calendar number 18. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 263, Senator Bidle, Health, Food Service Facilities, Beverage Options with Children's Meals.
Senate Bill 263 is on third reader for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 263, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 279, Senator Heddleman, Access to Counsel in Evictions, Special Fund Alteration.
Chair recognizes Chair of the Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just commend the senator from District 11 for creating access to counsel last year. Obviously, this is a mechanism to fund that. We have a couple other vehicles that will be doing the same thing, and I'd like to move them in tandem. So for that reason and that reason alone, I'd like to special order this to the appropriate time on Thursday.
All right, senators move to special order the bill to the appropriate time on Thursday. Any objections to the senator's motion? Without objection, so ordered. The bill will be special ordered until Thursday of next week. All right, the desk is clear. Oh, Chair recognizes the senator from the 37th District.
Yes, thank you very much. And Senate Bill 263, I want to be read. Thank you.
Yes, any objections to the senator going from green to red? Without objection, so ordered. Any other changes? All right. Desk is clear. Let's, do we have any committee announcements here? Chair of Finance?
No, not today.
All right. Well done. Chair recognizes the Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs.
Mr. President, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs will meet at 1:30 for voting or as soon as Rules Committee is over, but plan on 1:30.
All right, 1:30. Chair recognizes the Vice Chair of Budget and Tax.
Thank you. The Public Safety Subcommittee will meet, Budget Subcommittee will meet right after session. The Education Subcommittee will meet at 1:15, and the Health Subcommittee will meet soon after 1.
All right, the Rules Committee will meet today, so that the subcommittees may just want to do it right after. So there might be
So
some senators that are a bit late. Just want to check in.
So
All right,
the subcommittees will meet as soon as folks can get there.
Yes.
After rules. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Senator. Nothing for JPR. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules Committee will meet immediately after session across the hall in the Red Room.
All right.
Thank you.
Rules following session. Chair recognizes the senator from Baltimore County, Howard County.
For fair practices.
Fair practice. Yes, right, of course.
So the Joint Committee on Fair Practices and State Personnel Oversight will have a virtual meeting at 3 p.m. on Tuesday, March 1st. Thank you.
Tuesday, 3 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chair recognizes the Chair of the Anne Arundel Pension AELR.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, AELR will meet at 2:30 today. You should have the Zoom link in your inboxes. We have 13 witnesses that will be heard after the State Superintendent and Board Chair of the State Board of Education. I don't expect the meeting will be too long, but please make time. We will be voting after we hear the witnesses. Thank you, Mr. President.
Madam Chair. All right, any further? Yes, Chair recognizes Senator from District 6.
Special privilege, if I could, Mr. President. We know that all of us here as senators, we have family. And all of us at times go through things. And not to mention any names, and I'm not going to do that. But we know some of us need a time that we can maybe say a small prayer for them. And I'm personally, and I would love everyone here, if you just take a small moment. The Lord tells us to pray without ceasing. So throughout the day, he asks us to do that. I would hope all of us, and we don't know what any of us are going through, but I'm here to tell you God knows. He knows your heart, and he knows what you're going through. So if you just give a small moment of your time throughout today and the weekend, and just say a small prayer for a senator, I think it goes a long way with God, even in music. So, Mr. President, I thank you for this time. And if you give just a small moment, it would really just give a joy to heaven. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. No doubt. Everyone's going through something. All right. Any further announcements before we adjourn? It appears not. Let's go ahead and do a quorum call.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. All right, with 44 members and the chairman of quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a reminder to the body that Monday will be a pro forma session, so you don't need to show up. So I move that the Senate of Maryland stand adjourned until Monday, February 28th.
Senator, I think we want to recess because of the layover.
We're going to recess. Okay. I move the Senate of Maryland stand in recess until Monday, February 28th for a pro forma session at 4 p.m.
All right. Without objection, so ordered. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great weekend.